Okay, so Monday, 18th of May, 2026. So Adrian's daily vlog, sharing smart stuff men should know. Entropy vectors. Now, this is something a bit visceral that I came across a couple of years ago. Because a friend of a friend had a mountain bike. And he had this theory, this emphasis of having as few moving parts as possible on that bike. He didn't want a certain retractable seat, and he didn't want certain gears, things like that, and he wanted certain kind of brakes to keep the whole mechanism as simple as possible. What he was doing really is reducing the chance. His stated intention was reducing the chances of having breakdowns basically on the bike, meaning he was reducing the entropy vectors, we could say, reducing the chance of introducing entropy or minimizing the vectors in which entropy can enter a system. Meaning, if he has all these moving parts on the bicycle, the more complex the system is, the more likely it is to break down in some fashion. The more likely it is to break down, the more likely disaster is to happen at the least opportune moment, we could say. It's very logical, very plausible. So we could say, the more complex a system, the more potential entropy there is that could affect you. Fair enough. Not just keep things simple, but have fewer moving parts, hence the bicycle. He had the idea of, someone else I knew as well wanted to try and avoid, in business and in life, he would say, buying work, so to speak. So someone else I knew wanted to have a swimming pool installed, and he didn't want the hassle of having to maintain it and repair it, whatever else, because he had an interesting mantra about not buying work, not having to essentially increase the maintenance cost, we could say. So he had the idea of not buying work via the swimming pool. Oh yes, and other things as well in this house, but another story. The point is, the more complex the system, in terms of the bicycle, more brakes, more gears, the more complex the seating, things like that, the more likely it is to break down. Things do not merely fall apart, they fall apart through identifiable routes. Identifiable routes, that's the idea there. And sloppy attention leaves those routes open. Then we could say, the more interconnected and hard to repair systems, the more dangerous small failures become. Quite powerful, don't you think? A worthwhile understanding and being aware of in business and in life. Meaning, the more likely things are to break down and fall apart, because we recognise those routes. So you could say, as a business principle, as a thesis, keep things simple. Entropy vectors are the specific pathways through which disorder, wear, neglect, and error enter a system. The more complex, tightly coupled, hidden and compounding a system is, the more vulnerable it becomes to small, uncorrected faults. Uncorrected faults, making small errors, making small misjudgments, things like that. The bicycle is a good example. You take that bicycle and go through the mountains, a mountainous terrain as planned, as intended, as designed, and it could risk messing up the gears. And because there's so many of them, or it's using a certain kind of chain, for example, or using an inferior material in the chain, real nitty-gritty things like that, can cause all kinds of problems later on with regards to sustainability, or even the system and structure itself. So we could say, do not romanticize complexity. A lot of advanced systems are just more expensive to fail, harder to inspect, harder to repair, more dependent on export or expert maintenance, things like that. Modernity loves adding cleverness where robustness would do the trick. Interesting. So then you could say, well, if you're going to focus more on cleverness and elegance of a design, there's a very, very famous colloquial phrase in the American Army about this, gear queer. Too focused on the gear, too focused on the equipment, and not focused on the robustness, the adaptability, the structure, the network, getting the job done, things like that. You're too focused on that, and you're leaving yourself open for all kinds of disasters later on. It's inefficient, it's just an inefficiency. So, the strongest form of this is not, entropy exists and hurts complex things. It is. Every system has failure pathways, complexity, coupling, and neglect. Complexity, coupling, and neglect determine how many there are, how fast problems spread, and how hard they are to reverse. How hard they are to reverse. Because then you can say at a deeper level, you have these systems in place, but do you have reversibility, i.e. Control Z, built in? To what extent can you undo past actions, past decisions, past things like, past, you name it. How easy can you undo these things? That's the deeper level question as well, in a sense of recoverability. Because you can then, that bike, for example, all he had to do was just not use a certain gear and just deactivate the movable seat thing, the retractable seat, or just replace it in general mechanically. And he replaced the brakes as well. I can't remember what kind of brakes he used, hydraulic, things like that, I suspect, things like that. But that, because then you could say, if there is no reversibility, you are stuck. You're going to have problems with regards to you've painted yourself into a corner. That and life, we could say we don't want that, because at a deeper level we want to maximize optionality, to maximize survival, we could say, at a level. Yeah. But otherwise, Adrian's daily vlog, sharing smart stuff men should know. Subscribe for more, and you will see me tomorrow.